The following is a presentation of the WRAD Talk Network and New River Radio Group. It's time for Fourth and Goal, presented by Cody Jernell of the Gravity Real Estate Group on the WRAD Talk Network. Voice of the Pulaski County Cougars, Rick Watson, is here to discuss and break down this week's matchups in the New River Valley and beyond. Here is Rick Watson.
And we welcome you into another edition of the Fourth and Goal Show. I'm Rick Watson, joined by Jermaine Ferrell, the sports director for WFXR Sports. And we're getting down the final stretch now, JF. High school football, my goodness gracious, it's flown by. We've talked about that and some big results last week, leading into some bigger games coming up this week in terms of playoff positioning.
I tell you, R-Dub, this season has flown by. I mean, goodness gracious, we're in we're going again to week 10. And the weather is shaping up like it feels like it should be week 10, way that
it does.
Temperatures have dropped a little bit and the weather is getting, but hey, it's we're getting there. And, you know, the last batch of football games, and then we go into November. We started in August, blazed through the month of September, blazed through the month of October. Now we are in, do you remember, November?
Yeah, you're right. And that's what we'll be thinking about, some of those really cold days later on. We're in state semifinals and so forth. But
yes.
I want to talk about some schools here locally that we're looking at. We know Salem's a given for the postseason, but Christiansburg looks like they've got Division III locked down. That was an impressive win against Patrick Henry, your alma mater, on Friday night, especially from the defensive perspective. I thought the Blue Demons made a big statement in that game against PH, 37-14.
I tell you, they held a high-powered offense down. I mean, PH was coming in there, shooting all weapons, for firing. And then all of a sudden, they ran into a buzzsaw Christiansburg. And Christiansburg, they have locked up the number one seed in Region 3D. So kudos to them. And then, you see how they're playing. I mean, they are playing so well. PH, obviously, they're going to have to bounce back. They have a tough last two games. I mean, obviously, they got one tonight taking on the Pulaski County Cougars, who they are definitely in playoff mode, too, because they're going to have to win and get some help. And then you finish with Salem at Salem Stadium. But Christiansburg is really flexing their muscles. They had that one loss this year to Salem. But other than that, they have really been a dominant team, and they played so well and winning games, and particularly in the region. I mean, you beat in Abingdon, go all the way down there and win there, and then, destroy a Hidden Valley team in your region. So when they came to teams in the region 3D, they've been awesome. And they are going to be a force to be reckoned with in this region, not only the region 3D playoffs, but if they win the region, I mean, they have just as good shots as anybody, although on the other side of that bracket, you're probably staring down a Liberty Christian Academy, and they've been rocking and rolling as well. They haven't dropped the game all season.
That's what's unique about the River Ridge. You just talked about it. You've got PH, they're a Region 5. You got the 4s, you got the 3D. It's interesting to have all those different schools representing different sections of the state playoffs in one league, like the River Ridge.
You got a lot of combination there.
Yeah.
You look at it, and really a lot of your districts in our area, they have the combinations. You look at the Blue Ridge district, you got Franklin County, which is a class 16, Fleming's a class 5, and then you got a bunch of class 3s. And then you look at the River Ridge, you got a class 5, you got some class 4s and class 3s. So you have a mixture. So playing all these teams kind of in your classification zone is going to make it tougher for you. I mean, your smaller classifications, usually you have it's class 2 and class 1s, a lot of those. But I tell you what, it's big time, and then, you look at the Seminole, and that's like a battle royal. It's funny, they call the Seminole district the SEC West type district with all those teams.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you look at a Seminole, and I'm not taking anything away from the River Ridge because they got scout teams, but the Seminole, when you got a Liberty Christian, you got an EC Glass, you got a Heritage, you got Amherst County, a Rustburg, and then you got Brookville playing well, and then you got a JF team, even though they haven't won a game. They've had some tight things there, and then Liberty playing well over there. So, I mean, that's a tough district. And when you have a tough district, Rick, it prepares you, even though a district championship doesn't carry the same cachet as it used to in the past. I mean, because of all the classifications being mixed into a district.
Was a big deal. Yeah.
I mean, winning a district, it still is. I think, you still have the trophy for winning a district in football and any other sport. But when you look at it now, I mean, it basically is going to prepare you for when you have to go to the playoffs and you have to make a run. So it'll be interesting to see, once we get into regular season, how this has prepared teams for their playoff runs.
I want to ask you about a topic that I want to get your take on it, see if you think I'm off my mind or not here. But when I see these postponements that we've had, and now you have a program like Auburn that's canceled its season, like they've already canceled the game tonight against Giles. You have Giles, who's looking for playoff positioning. They had a big win last week, and they're 6-2, but they don't get to play their game. Are we at the point to where we understand, okay, look, you make the decision what's best for your student athletes always, right? Whether it's related to protocols or whether you just don't have enough players to play. But what's your mindset? I am of the mindset that team that can't play, regardless of their circumstance, should have to forfeit the game. I think the team that hasn't done anything in their program to make themselves not available, whether that's protocols or whether that's having enough players, they shouldn't be punished by not having a result. What's your take on all that with those schools?
Well, I know what you're saying, and I think it's not really a one-size-fits-all because there's some circumstances behind it. Now, if you can't play the game for some reason, it should go down as a forfeit in that essence. But if you're trying to do everything humanly possible, you're trying to exhaust every option you got to get the game in, then that's one difference right there. But overall, I mean, it's just such a tough thing because a lot of these issues aren't necessarily COVID issues. It could be a health thing. If your numbers are low, like let's say if you're a program that doesn't have a lot of players. I mean, and I hate to be that guy, but I guess I'm going to come off being that guy. When you look at a situation, let's just say you have a program, you need, in my opinion, I think you need somewhere in the neighborhood of, to be effective, you need somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 players. Really, Actually, you need about 25 players. I know I said 20, but you need 25 so you can actually scrimmage. I mean,
sure.
I'll give you a prime example. Earlier this year, I went over and I covered Roanoke Catholic. We did a preview of Roanoke Catholic. Roanoke Catholic had I think they had like 3 or 4 players that were injured on the side. And then they couldn't really scrimmage that well because then that only gives you 12 players. Where if it's 11-man
Mm-hmm.
football, it'll be typically it's 11 on 11. If you're playing basketball, you're going to have 5-on-5.
Right.
As far as whether they should forfeit the game, I think if you can't play the game, like for instance, you look at Blacksburg. I mean, they're supposed to play Salem, coming up, next Tuesday, but Blacksburg has forfeited that game against Salem. So when you look at that, when you have a forfeit, it goes on your record, as a loss, and the other team, they do get a win. And it's very important when it comes to the playoff points because you did everything you can to schedule this game, to play this game, but then you forfeit the game, or, a no contest to me. Now, for some teams, it's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things in the playoffs because they have enough playoff points, so it doesn't really matter. But if you got teams that are battling for playoff position, and all that, the right thing to do is, hey, if I can't play this game, I should forfeit it. That way, it gives the other team an advantage. Now,
absolutely,
if you look at, again, another part of it is if you're the team that that did everything right, your opponent can't get everything going, then you run into, okay, we're in a situation we haven't played in a while. There was a stretch, I think Lord Bata didn't play a game for a month because teams canceled or teams couldn't play.
Right.
So it kind of hurts you. You want to get the game in, and every coach and every competitor, whether on both sides, they're competitors. They want to play these games. But again, you got to look at safety. You got to look at precaution. Okay, I haven't had enough players to practice. I need to forfeit the game. Or I just can't get it done, and I'm going to let the game slide. But then it penalizes you because now you're basically doing the other side. You might be practicing doing all this other stuff. So I see your understanding. I guess I gave you a long-winded answer to a question.
No,
I think it depends on the circumstance. But overall, if you can't play the game for some reason, it should go down as a forfeit.
I agree.
Now, if you can reschedule the game, you can get the
Sure,
game in.
sure.
Then that's a different ball game. And some teams have actually tried to get the game in. Teams have tried to play the games, but if you can't play the game, it has to go as a forfeit for the most part. But if you're trying everything humanly possible, because a no contest does the other team absolutely doesn't do them any good because they don't get any points.
And they haven't done anything. They
did nothing to create the situation. So I understand what you're saying.
I get what you're saying.
It's a tough spot. It's a tough spot for these athletic directors, these coaches, and these players. Because again, I think everybody wants to play the games.
Well, kudos to Blacksburg, right? That they've actually said we're forfeiting, so there's not any of that gray area out there. So Salem will get that credit for that win. But this is where the VHSL continues to drop the ball. They just kind of let everybody make their own rules for each league, and there should be some kind of statewide rule about that. Look, this takes the pressure off those ADs and those coaches, and maybe it makes those programs who maybe don't want to play a game anyway say, well, we got to play it because now you have the forfeit rule in there. So it's kind of it's a lot of ambiguity there, and I don't think it's something that these administrators at the schools who's trying to get everybody healthy and trying to get through the school year should have to deal with on a Friday. But if you can't play the game or don't want to play the game, then okay, that's fine. We understand you're taking care of your kids, but you're going to forfeit because it's not fair to the other kids in that other program who've been working their butts off and they are healthy and ready to go that they don't get a result. That's all I'm saying. So
but Rick, a program do not want to forfeit. That's something that's, the competitor, they don't want to quit. They don't want to give up a game. And, as a last resort, yes. But you can do, you bet your bottom dollar. You got to do everything you can. And these teams who have rescheduled games and they've done everything possible.
I'm with you.
But there does come a point where you got to say, look, we're not going to be able to get this game in. Let's take the L. Let's just fast forward it. Let's move it over to another team.
Because then it makes it too easy. It makes it too easy for this mindset to prevail again. That we just have a no contest. We just won't play the game. No, if you have to forfeit and let there be a penalty there, then maybe it won't be so easy not to play it next time too. So
but what the biggest question is, Rick, will the VHSL get involved?
My first reaction would have to be, Jermaine, no, they don't get involved.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. There you go. I mean, the VHSL is in the category of the NCAA. Now when it comes to the money and the playoffs and all that,
they're involved then.
They're involved when it's coming to some money. We're all involved when it involves money.
Absolutely.
But when it involves, and they've kind of been radio silent when it comes to all the decisions because their rules are, hey, look, let's leave it up to the localities because what we say. But if you're the VHSL, you're the governing body of public high school athletics and other things, not just athletics, but academic stuff and all that. You can call the shots.
And everybody
That's why you have these committees.
That's right.
You have committees.
That's right.
You have an executive board that is created of athletic directors and principals and superintendents. So, you're right. I mean, in one aspect, what works for, say, Northern Virginia might not work for, the Roanoke area or the New River Valley or Lynchburg or Danville area or, whatever. So it's kind of like you got to look at this. You get a cross section of people, like you get some superintendents for ADs from throughout the area. You meet up and you make some of these rules and guidelines and guidelines and all that. Just get you a mixture. You can make the decisions. But the bottom line is, I agree with you. I think there should be, some aspect. Okay, let's put a timetable. If we can't find a place to play the game, we will call it a forfeit, and then you don't have to worry about it. So,
right, and that takes care of both. And that takes care of both groups of kids: the ones who can't play the game, of all of it, and the ones who are ready to play the game. It is the Fourth and Goal show. We're going to take a break. We'll come back, and we'll get out of all the the goings on because Jermaine and I have all the solutions that the VHSL doesn't. We'll take a break. We'll come back, and we'll look ahead to the schedule this week and some pretty good matchups coming up as we position ourselves closer to the playoffs. More coming up. Stay with us. Don't go away.
Now back to more comprehensive high school football coverage in the New River Valley on 4th and Goal, presented by Cody Jernell of the Gravity Real Estate Group on WRAD. Here once again is Rick Watson.
Welcome back into the 4th and Goal show. I'm Rick Watson, joined by Jermaine Ferrell, the sports director for WFXR. And before we get into this week's games, Jermaine, what is going to be your game of the week on the Blitz?
Well, I tell you what, it's a big one. I mean, we're going to go to Region 2C. You got Glenver hosting Radford. I mean, Glenver, first of all, the number one team right now in Region 2C. And, obviously Appomattox is on their heels. But in number 3, you got the Radford, I was going to call them the Highlanders again. See, Radford Highlanders, but it's the Radford Bobcats. It's so easy to confuse because the Glenvers, they're the Highlanders.
Right.
Radford is the Bobcats. But if you talk about the university, you talk about the Radford Highlanders and when it comes to sports there. When you look at this game, I mean, first of all, these two teams have played each other over the years. It's been one of those fun games, and really over the last couple of years, I mean, it's pretty much been, Glenver's had the upper hand.
Yeah, they have.
But I think when you look at this Radford Glenver game, it's all going to come down to basically you look at Glenver's offense and they run the ball very well. They pass the ball very well. Aiden Walk, quarterback, really one of the strong keys to Glenver. And you got two coaches that are so good at what they do. Michael Crisp at Radford, one of the good ones in the business. Again, his pedigree. When you look at, I mean, heck, if he wanted to get some help with coaching, he can call a couple of guys that they won a few games in their lifetime, and of course Norm Lindenberg, or you can call his dad, Dave Chris. I mean, you talk about just having that pipeline, two great coaches that are connected to him, and so you look at that. And then Kevin Clifford, of course, he won a state championship in 2014, and he always has his teams in the running, in the conversation. Because, it's a culture. And the thing is, at Glenver, there is a culture over there. And at Radford, they've had a culture there for years. They've been known to, make deep playoff runs and compete. And the same with Glenver. So you got two programs that are dripped in tradition. And it's going to be a fun game Saturday, tonight, 7 o'clock, over there at Highlander Heaven, one of the more picturesque places. When you look at a game and you look out there, you see the mountains and all that. It's so like a commercial
moment.
Almost,
Yes.
Yes.
It
you
is.
go out there. And it's funny when you look at that, when you go out there, I go out there and I look at it and I say to myself, wow, this is, you almost are taken aback. I mean, you're there. You got to remember, by the way, I'm there to cover a football game, but it's kind of it's very special. It's a beautiful place. And you're right. It's like a Zen moment when you step out there. You're like, wow. It's like you should be doing a York peppermint patty commercial in honor of Halloween,
Right.
You do one of those, or Wrigley's, or Wrigley spearmint gum commercial. I don't know, one of those, but anyway, it's very picturesque and it's nice. And, you take a look at it and you got it. So, but yeah, getting onto the field, I mean, you're going to have a battle here. The winner of this game, Rick, I mean, if you're Glenver and you win the game, you pretty much almost maybe you come close to locking up the top seed.
Right.
If you're Radford, you win the game, you're in the conversation because if you beat the number one team, in theory, the way the points would shake out, you would think they would leap into the top spot or number 2 maybe.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, it's going to be an interesting triangle because if you're looking at a triangle with them as well as, Appomattox, they've played well and they've done what they've done. I mean, they're going to be a tough out. So if you definitely want to be the number 1 seed because you're going to have home, field advantage. But I'm looking at the Region C and you see another team that's really, when I look, Rick, I'm sorry, must have lost you. Okay, cool.
No, I'm here.
Thought I lost you for a second. Okay. So when you look at that region, Rick, I mean, you got Glenver, Appomattox, Radford, Martinsville, James River, Floyd, Gretna, and Patrick County. That's a tough region right there.
It
and
really
looks like
is.
those are going to be the teams that are gonna get into the playoffs. And so when you look at that, but then a surprising Martinsville, they've really come in and they've done well this year. They have a chance to host a game. And in James River, they're going to be a tough out for somebody. But again, if your top 3 is Glenver, Appomattox, and Radford, you definitely And I'm not saying they're easy games, but if you're in a regional semifinal and your opponent is, i.e., one of the three in that combination. Let's say if you're Radford, you might have to face an Appomattox or a Glenver. So you're going to have back-to-back tough games. So we'll see how it goes, but it'll be interesting how it plays out right there and here. But yes, Rick, it is.
It'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun.
It is going to be a battle. It's going to be a fun one.
We mentioned the Seminole, and Liberty Christian seems to be far and away the class. I mean, we thought that they were going to have tough games before. Brookville didn't work out that way against Heritage. They have Amherst tonight on the road. Brookville, EC Glass, Rustburg, Jefferson Forest, Heritage, and Liberty. I mean, those are 8 teams. Jefferson Forest obviously having a really tough year, but the other squads 7 of those teams are really, really strong football teams. The problem is LCA is also in that league, and they are clearly a step above. They're just getting better every week, aren't they?
They sure are. And then they're one of those teams that, they lost a game, but heck, they could end up being 9-0, and they pretty much clinched the top seed. But then when you look at that region, it's going to come down to, again, playoff points and what teams can do. And, I look closely at that region, and I'm going to look at Region 3C because that's how we roll around these parts. When you look at the tightness of it, I mean, right now it's LCA with a big, comfortable lead, but then you got Heritage and Brookville. I mean, they're kind of in the mix, battling for the number 2 seed. And obviously, even though you want to play at home, Heritage and Brookville, they called them the Tangle at Timberlake. I mean, is there a big difference between playing at Stinger Stadium and City Stadium and Lynchburg? Yes, in a way, but it's not like it's a long, long journey.
Yes.
And then you got Broadway and Rockbridge County battling for a home game, which would be the 4th seed. And then you look at Turner Ashby and Wilson Memorial and Rustburg. Rustburg trying to hang on to that 8th spot. They're battling that out with Stanton and then Liberty down in Bedford. So, I mean, really, there's a whole lot of consternation going on down there. There's a lot of stuff that you look at, you say to yourself, hey, what are we having here? And then, so basically, in fact, the top 3 teams in Region 3C, Rick, are out of the Seminole. Then you got 3 teams from the Valley District, and then, the Seminole. So Seminole could have half of the playoff spots, in Region 3C. And then, obviously, you look at EC Glass, they got a matchup with LCA and Horizon for Week 11. So we'll see how that goes. But it's going to be an interesting battle when we get down to it, these last 2 games, because these games can prepare teams for the playoffs.
Elsewhere here in the Valley, we have Tazewell Fort Chiswell going to be playing one another. George with Grayson County. Galax had to pick up a game. They're playing West Stokes, North Carolina on tonight, a little bit later on. Eastmont and Covington, Narrows and Craig. And how are you thinking it's going to shape up down there in Class 1 with some of these smaller schools and some of the local schools that are trying to fight their way in?
All I say is wow, Rick. Again, I think we're saying it again. It's wow because these teams are really going to get after it. And we got a bunch of local teams. When you look at our regions in Class 1, I mean, you got William Campbell and Alta Vista kind of in playoff position, but they're in the lower end of that Region 1B. And then, of course, a lot of our local teams are in Region 1C. Yeah. You got Galax, Giles, Perry McClure. How about them? Perry McClure coming on. And then Eastern Montgomery. Eastern Montgomery.
I love the Eastern Montgomery story. Yeah.
The Mustangs, it was like 10 years ago they played for a state championship. Now they're kind of in the mix. And then, your old school teams like the Covingtons, the George Witts, Giles, Galax, Narrows, which could potentially be a 8 seed. You don't want to play them. Because it's still Narrows. They kind of had a tough patch of games, but it's still Narrows. So, and then one program, even though it looks like they won't get in, how about Craig County? The season they've had this year, to get 3 wins, go 3-4. They've had some success. So, hey, to get a win and to be in the conversation now, for them to get in the playoffs, a lot of things have to happen. But to have the season they had, and maybe they can try to have a 500 record if they can win their last 2 games. You're 5-4. Hey, you can't apologize for having a winning record. So that's something that's big. But that Region 1C, Rick, is a stout region. And so it's going to come down to all these teams, and it's all about playoff position because now, you're more likely in. So now you're trying to position yourself. You definitely want to play at home. You want to get as high a seed as possible to get a home game. So that's going to be the key.
Well, and I agree with you. You know, in these smaller programs, you know, we had Craig County who almost had to stop playing for a while, and Bland did for a while, right? They didn't have enough kids, and Auburn's having to stop now. We've seen these great stories. It can be rebuilt, and it can happen. You know, you just have to kind of fight through it and get through all those different sections when you don't have enough bodies. But it's great to see stories like Eastmont, who's always had number issues, or it seems like they have, and Craig and Bland, and now Auburn. And I hope all those programs can get up and running and stay functional, because we can see once they are, Jermaine, they have pretty good football talent there, right? Once they get enough bodies to play.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's all about, and at the smaller classifications, like you mentioned, Rick, it is tough to get bodies. I mean, not only they're playing both ways, I mean, you just don't have a big pool of players.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So it's always been a struggle for years for the smaller classifications to get as many players as they can to play. And now when you look at it, it's going to be tricky. It's going to be tough. But hey, at the end of the day, hey, you got to do what you got to do to get bodies and get players in and do what you can. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, definitely.
Well, I mean, we are getting closer. It's a great time of year. And again, as we get down to the final few weeks, kudos to the kids and the coaches who made this happen. We have a lot of local schools that are still involved, and looking forward to seeing the pictures and the sights that you bring home from down at Glenver, because you're right, that's become a really good rivalry. Radford and Glenver, they started playing while Coach Lindenberg was still here, and he kept telling me then, you know, he said, you know, this is going to be a good rivalry down the road, and sure enough, it's developed into that. So you guys are going to have a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be fun times, and you know, we got you covered, and of course we have our player of the week, which is a guy that, you know, again, we never give it away until the show airs, so it's a tease, so you got to watch it, and you know, we never give it away.
I know you don't.
We tease you. We tease. It's like you know, it's like tease.
Yeah, I know. So I have to wait and watch tonight.
We got to watch it tonight, and then you can watch it online and all that. So David and Ryan Moy will be hooking us up. So
am I going to see you tonight? Are you going to come down to PH?
You will not see me because I have I know I hear I'm going to be that guy, right? I was there.
This is payback.
No. It's actually I will be David de Guzman will be anchoring Friday Night Blitz because I will be en route down to Atlanta to cover Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech. So we will have that covered.
I got you.
Yeah, David will be on the mic, and Ryan Moy will be assisting with our game of the week and our player of the week. So we got it rocking and rolling tonight on WFXR. Check us out after Major League Baseball, Game 3 of the World Series.
So be sure to check them out. I hope you have safe travels, my friend, down to Hotlanta. And we'll be doing this again next week, folks. There'll only be one more regular season week left for most of the schools next week here on the Fourth and Goal Show. Thanks to Cody Journell for sponsoring this program. And thank you, all you high school football fans, for listening. For Jermaine Ferrell, Rick Watson saying so long. Enjoy the games, everybody. We'll see you next Friday.
You've been listening to Fourth and Goal with Rick Watson, presented by Cody Journell of the Gravity Real Estate Group on the WRAD Talk Network. Tune in again Fridays at 6 p.m. all season long for in-depth analysis of high school football in the New River Valley. This has been a production of the WRAD Talk Network and New River Radio Group. Copyright 2021. All rights reserved.